Welcome to Open M.I.C. I'm your host, Jamal Radio Raheem. Now, Open M.I.C. is a music podcast you get anywhere that you get podcasts. You can also watch it on YouTube if you're one of those visual people like myself. Now, this season, we are doing a track-by-track breakdown of Section 80 by Kendrick Lamar. Now, the previous episode, we talked about Hold Up, track number 2. Now, this episode, we are focusing on A.D.H.D. Without further ado, let's get it, shawty.
Fuck that.
Okay, I want to give a disclaimer before we get into this episode. I don't like Ronald Reagan. I don't like anything that he stood for. I don't like his wife. I have a hatred for them people. I just want to put that out there, give that little disclaimer. That's not going to take away from the facts or anything that I'm saying, but I do want to point that out there, that I do not like them. So if some of that comes out, I apologize ahead of time. Now let's just get into the conversation. ADHD. So a little background on what ADHD is. It's an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now, we saw and we still see to this day this being put on a lot of black children. A lot of black and brown children get this label. We saw it at an extreme high during the 1980s, and they were saying to the kids who are quote unquote crack babies. We saw this a lot, and this song addresses that, the crack epidemic on the black community, the poor community, and that's why I probably think this is the most important song on the album, because it is addressing literally what like we saw plague a lot of black communities, a lot of people who grew up in Section 80. Now, this song is discussing the war on drugs. For those who don't know what the war on drugs was, it was something that was initiated by Richard Nixon, and it was executed even better by Ronald Reagan. The war on drugs refers to the U.S., their campaign in the 80s to like reduce like illegal drug use, the sale of drugs, consumption of it. All of that involved a lot of things, stricter laws. So you saw sentencing for like certain drugs, the years go up. You know, you saw certain drugs, even though they did the same thing, like crack and the crack rock. You saw those also, you get a longer sentence for one drug, which happens to be the one that you saw with black people more, which was the rock. That's what you saw. You saw that happening, and over that, there was campaigns all over the country. All over the countries, you know, like it was kind of like a shift. You saw a shift in more focus on drug dealing, more focus on the people taking the drugs, and you saw them even painting certain people as drug users, drug abusers, and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna lie, they did a great job of this. They did a great job. They executed this plan perfectly. You know, do I think the plan was good? Hell no. Do I hate Ronald Reagan for it? Absolutely. But they executed this perfectly, you know what I'm saying? Like, and some might say this was a success, but the numbers say it was not a success. The numbers say that it actually like made it harder for people, you know. Instead of trying to help people out, it criminalized them. It gave them longer sentencing. It just basically showed you where the problems were in the country, and we weren't going to fix it. In fact, we're going to punish the people for it. You know, with the war on drug campaigns, we saw so many things happening. So many. We saw Nancy Reagan's just say no.
Say yes to your life. And when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.
And what Just Say No was an advertising campaign to prevent drug use in the 1980s, in the early 90s when I was born. And it was kind of like the initiative to target kids and stuff like that, to be like, don't do drugs, you know, say no to them. Like there are so many commercials for it. And it has some of the most famous athletes, actors, celebrities. In fact, I'll put a few of them right here so you can see exactly what I am talking about.
I get angry just thinking about it makes me mad. Little kids doing drugs, it turns my stomach. That stuff hurts. It stops you from living up to your potential. It holds you back. It hurts the user. It hurts his family. And it hurts his friends. I just want to shake some sense into you kids that are using drugs and thinking about using it. So remember, don't, or else. Okay?
I'm Captain Lou Albano talking to you about drugs. Kids, don't be afraid to say no. Anyone that asks you to use drugs is not your friend. Drugs can and will kill. Remember, don't be afraid to turn to your priest, your rabbi, your minister, your moms, your dads, your teachers, because drugs can kill. And if you do drugs, you go to hell before you die.
Please. The slogan that Nancy Reagan came up with, the "Just Say No," during her husband's presidency, it did a thing. It did a thing. Not a good thing, but it did a thing. And I'm going to talk from my personal experience. I would say that the war on drugs and like some of the programs that was introduced over the war on drugs, it actually introduced me to what some of these drugs were. I had no idea of what some of these drugs were. Introduced a lot of my friends and family, older cousins, they didn't know what some of these drugs were. The war on drugs and them informing us on these things actually was how we learned about these things, Unpopular belief that they think that like everybody was just on it and all these people were crack babies and stuff like that. They actually introduced us to these drugs. And some will say, and the evidence shows, they even put the drugs in our communities. But the evidence also shows that the war on drugs was a complete failure. In fact, in 2011, the Global Commission on Drugs showed the consequences, and they showed that it actually didn't help. The global war on drugs has failed. Surprise, surprise, you know what I'm saying? Like, it didn't do good. And we also saw during that time the rich getting richer. That's something that we are currently seeing now. Like, the parallels we see to today is actually kind of insane. Donald Trump has used some of these same talking points, instead of like crack, now it's like fentanyl. That seems to be the drug. Synthetic drugs seem to be the target now. Like, we're starting to see them adopt this little new approach. There's certain executive orders. They keep talking about drug cartels and all these things. Like, criminal organizations are being added to like federal terrorist organization, special designated. What's it called? I'm drawing a blank. There's a name. These people are getting added to this list of terrorists, domestic terrorists. That's the list that they're getting added to. We're seeing the same exact thing that we saw under Ronald Reagan. We saw that they're seeing it. Point blank period, we are seeing it. The war on drugs, though, was not a success. I know a lot of Republicans, I know a lot of people on the right, even some on the left, like to say like it did its thing and it helped reduce drugs. It did not. All it did was criminalize it. All it did was fill our prison system with more people, which might have been their plan to begin with, to get free labor. And that's just my personal opinion on that. But ADHD, we see a lot of people get put on this. I know so many people that they try to say have ADHD, and in reality, they don't. They're just being misdiagnosed. There's so many people that I know growing up that got diagnosed and later comes out they were misdiagnosed. They were just kids with hella energy, kids, to be honest, doing what kids do. And yeah, I was about to go on a tangent about my hatred for Reagan, and I'm proud of myself that I caught myself. I stopped myself from going on a rant, because this video would have been 30 minutes long of me just talking about all of the heinous things Ronald Reagan has done and why I don't like him and the parallels that we see with Donald Trump. But that's for a different video, for a different podcast, and we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to talk about the song. So, ADHD might be the song that put Kendrick Lamar on the map. It was the song that I started to hear on like radio stations. It was a song that I heard people who don't listen to hip hop started to recite. This was the song that probably put him on the radars of people. And I understand why, you know what I'm saying? Not my favorite from the album, but I understand why when listening to the song. You know, you saw the conscious level of Kendrick, you saw the lyricism, you saw that he can make a song that's meaningful, deep, and also has replay value, which I think is a stat that people overvalue, like replay value, but we saw that. Now, the production of the song was handled by Soundwave. If you don't know who Soundwave is, he is the right hand man of Kendrick. He has been on all of his projects. I've talked about him in the last episode. Go back if you want to hear that. I'm not going to break down who Soundwave is. Just he's an underrated producer. And he produced this song. Now, the song samples The Nighthawk by the Jet Age of Tomorrow. And that sample is heard throughout the whole song. I'll play the sample for you right here. But yeah, that's the sample that you hear in the song. In fact, I think there was a lawsuit. I don't know if it ever got settled between the Jet Age of Tomorrow and Soundwave, because they're saying like they didn't get properly credited or whatever. You know how that stuff goes. But we're not here to talk about that. But that is a sample that you hear. Now we're just going to break down some of these lyrics in this track. Now, the chorus of this track alone is like, it points at like the drug epidemic we have in America, you know, and we definitely had in the 80s. It goes 8 doobies to the face, fuck that. 12 bottles in the case, nigga, fuck that. 2 pills and a half weight, nigga, fuck that. Got a high tolerance when your age don't exist. Saying that like there is a problem with drugs. We are starting to get this tolerance with drugs. It's everywhere, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just pointing out what we already know. Especially if you grew up in a poor community like I did. Drugs is everywhere. You know so many drug users, you know that the tolerance of it. And growing up, I used to wonder, how are y'all getting these things? How are y'all getting these pills? How are y'all getting these drugs? You know what I'm saying? But song is pointing that out. We have a problem, you know. We have a problem. So there's a tolerance that is going on, and people are building a tolerance for this drug. You know what I'm saying? A second lyric breakdown, or I want to point to, is the first verse, because he's again hitting on this topic of drug use and everything like that. And it says, "Cause you are a loner, marijuana endorphins make you stronger. I'm in this house party tripping off my generation, sipping cop syrup like it's water, never no pancakes in the kitchen." Like, again, talking about the drug use, how normalized it has become. Never no pancakes in the kitchen. Man, no one in our life is caught up in the daily superstition that the world is about to end. Who gives a fuck? We never do listen. Now, I remember, and it's crazy, like talking from 2025, but like I remember that a lot of people were really thinking like the world is going to end in 2012 because of like the Mayan calendar and stuff like that. And I used to think it was so dumb when people would say like the world's gonna end. So, anyways, let's just turn up and do whatever. It's like, yo, y'all realize that like for the Mayans to map out all the way to 2012 is actually kind of crazy. Like, that's crazy. That's so many years they mapped out. But again, though, this is like talking about the drug use that we see. Go deeper into the verse. He said, "Less it comes with an 808, a melody and some hoes, PlayStation and some drink, technology bumping my soul. Looking around and all I see is big crowd that's product of me, and they probably relatives relevant for the rebel's dream." Now he's talking about basically you're a product of your environment. You know what I'm saying? You're a product of everything you see. You're a product of experiences, and like the drug use is not a coincidence that we are seeing that in Black and brown communities. It's not a coincidence that a lot of people who grew up in that era like are crack babies or addicted to stuff that we unfortunately can't seem to get off of. It's not a coincidence that like cycles repeat. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're seeing drug use increase. We're seeing the people do the same exact thing because we are products of our environment, number one. And nobody cared about these people. The government never cared about the people. We're just a product of our environment. At the end of the day, we're a product of it's drug users raising druggies who becomes, and then the cycle continues. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, at the time we had a black president, but that didn't mean anything. That doesn't change anything. We were still struggling. Um, but let me finish the verse out. It says, "Yep, her president is black. She black too. Purple label on her back, but the tab is light blue. She take it straight to the head. Then she look at me. She got ADHD, meaning she's taking the drugs because she has ADHD. She gotta take her medicine. You know what I'm saying? You gotta take her medicine. You know, and I personal opinions. These are my opinions only. I don't want to say these are Kendrick's opinions. I think that them getting a lot of these kids like hooked on drugs and stuff like that when it comes to like ADHD and stuff like that, you kind of set the blueprint on how they are going to be because they're going to be so tolerant on this drug. They're so tolerant on it. You're building their tolerance to this drug so they can be like quote unquote normal, you know. And I honestly don't like it, but what can I do? It was already done to a lot of people. But that's what this song is addressing, in my opinion. But yeah, verse 2, another verse that I want to focus on. And it says, and at it, then she grabbed it, then she said, get it understood. You know that we crack baby because we born in the 80s, the ADHD crazy. Because of what happened in the 80s, you know, under Ronald Reagan, the crack baby era, crack era, war on drugs, you know what I'm saying? We saw like a crackdown on all these people, and now we're seeing the direct impact of this, you know what I'm saying? We are seeing the direct impact of Ronald Reagan's actions to this day. To this day, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was born in 92, but I got family who was born in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? Most of our parents were teenagers in the 80s. If you're around my age, they're a teenager in the 80s. They were going through some of this stuff. Some of them were on these things, you know. Some of these people were impacted by these things. It is what it is. So like that line hits so deep. Every time I hear this song too, like I always feel like a way because I don't like Ronald Reagan, because of doing research, because of stuff I learned and stuff I've seen. That you try to act like you don't see growing up. Like you try to play like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and try to be naive to it. But like reality eventually is going to catch up with you and stuff like that. So, yeah. And the last part I want to focus on is the most important part of the song, and it's actually not even sang by Kendrick. Um, and it comes from Ab-Soul. He's the one who is singing it. And it's, you can have all my shine. I give you the light. Double cup deuce 4-6, just mixing in Sprite. Ecstasy, shrooms, blow, dro, hose, whatever you like. You can have all my shine. I give you the light. Like, that is self-explanatory, but it's saying drugs take my pain away. Drugs, like, help me get away from this hell that we are going through right now. This poverty, we're escaping, you know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, um, unfortunately, we do see a lot of this impacting the black community. We do see a lot of people who are trying to escape from reality. We do see this happen so often. You know what I'm saying? Like the war on drugs and what it has done to not only the black community, but the brown community. But I'm black, so I'm going to focus strictly on that. What is done to the black community is insane. Like Ronald Reagan and his wife are burning in hell for what they did. Because this campaign on drugs, this campaign on life and stuff like that, there wasn't a problem like that until they introduced these things. And evidence showed that they were probably behind putting some of these things in these neighborhoods. They were behind some of the most heinous things happening to these people. And it's unfortunate that like a lot of people who grew up the way I grew up, they never make it out. You know what I'm saying? Like I can look at it as like I'm an outlier. I'm an outlier. You know, went to college, never got hooked on any drugs or done any drugs. You know, got a solid job, working education, can pay for my own living, and all that stuff. Like, I recognize that I am an outlier, but I also recognize there are some shit that I have to unpack. And it's not because of me. It's because of the environment I grew up in. I'm a product of my environment. Shout out to Sylvan LaCue. He got a song called Product of My Environment. Um, and that's just the reality of it. We are all products of our environment. We are products of what happened during the war on drugs. Some people never made it out, unfortunately. Some people, they still deal with these problems to this day. We in America still deal with these problems to this day. Like, the war on drugs never ended. It never ended. It's still happening. We're still seeing the impacts of it. We have people who are in jail to this day because of the war on drugs. People who are in jail because of the attacks on our communities. Like, evidence show that black, brown, and white, or whatever. Let me be very clear, because I was about to go on the. Actually, I don't care. I'll go on this tangent, and I'm gonna leave this all in. Evidence show that white people do drugs more than black people, but yet for certain drugs, we are still seeing more black people being arrested, more black people being targeted. That's not a coincidence. That is part of what the war on drugs is supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, even we could just talk about a drug like marijuana, weed. Evidence show that more white people do that. They smoke weed. But majority of the arrests are not white people. And it's crazy too that we have legalized this drug, but yet we have put so many people in jail over this drug. And now the people who are owning like dispensaries and all these things like that are the same people who were like advocating for there to be no free drugs, harsher sentencing. The people who are like advocating and owning all these things and pushing it now are the ones who wanted those people locked up. It makes no sense that we have people outside who have tried to kill the vice president, try to stop the election, try to do all of these harms. We got rapists, we got murderers, we got evil people out of jail, but we got people who sold a little dime bag. They in jail for 25 years. That doesn't make sense, because the war on drug has never ended. It wasn't really a war on drugs, but a war on black and brown, a war on us. And I personally will always hate Ronald Reagan. I think if I lost all of my memory, I would still remember that I hate Ronald Reagan, because that is in my blood. That is in my soul. What the war on drug has done and continues to do to the black community is insane. And what Kendrick was talking about on this song is pointing to a larger issue now. Like, the only thing that's changing is the drug of choice. There is still a problem of drug uses. And that is partly because of Ronald Reagan and his hoe ass wife. Just say no. Just say no as we push the drugs in your community. Just say no as we make life hard for you to get a job and cut all the way you can live and stuff like that. You have no other way of making money but selling drugs now. You can't get hired at these places. What are you supposed to do? Now we're seeing them criminalize being homeless. What do you think is going to happen? Crime is going to increase. Nobody wants to sleep on the sidewalk. You know what? I'm irritating myself, pissing myself off. ADHD to me is the most important song on Section 80 because it is addressing something that we see that plagued the black community, plagued it in the 80s, and it's a problem. It's a problem. The war on drug, however, has never ended, unfortunately. The war against us is still happening. Still happening. It just looks different. The drug of choice is just different. This song, it is deeper than the lyrics because the messaging is so important. It is so important, you know. And the unfortunate thing is I know people who were like chilling at the kickbacks playing ADHD, not understanding the messaging behind the goddamn song. They saying they're bumping the song while smoking the blunt. And I'm like, y'all do not understand what y'all are listening to. And that's why people don't listen to lyrics. But I'm going to get up out of here because I can talk forever about the war on drugs. I can talk forever about my hatred for Ronald Reagan and Nixon and Nancy Reagan. But ADHD by Kendrick Lamar, that's the track we chose to focus on. I don't know if I did a good job of even really talking about the track. But this has been Open Mic. I've been your boy Jamal Radio Raheem. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, rate us 5 stars. If you're going to rate us anything else, don't waste your time. And I'll catch y'all next week where we're going to focus on another track. Peace out.